Gary, why don't you turn that guitar here off? I have something to show you.
Oh yeah, what's that?
I was on Washington Journal yesterday. I actually called in to talk about the draft, you know.
You actually watch that channel?
Yeah, shut up, man. Let's just put it in.
Alright.
Families at home.
Our next student question from Hilliard, Ohio, with the C-SPAN Campaign '08 bus comes from Chris. Good morning, Chris.
Hi, my name is Christopher Mills, and I'm a senior here at Hilliard-Davidson High School. And I basically have a two-question comment here, or a two-part question. And first off, basically, what are the 20,000 additional troops going to be doing in Iraq? And second, if this additional troop surge in Iraq is unsuccessful, are we just going to keep sending more troops, and is eventually that going to lead to a draft? Because I'm an 18-year-old guy, and that's one of the bigger problems that I might be facing down the road.
And Christopher, both questions are top-notch. That is, what are the troops going to be doing? There are really two forces. One is going to Baghdad. It's going to double the number of American troops there, but it's also going to supplement a significant increase in the Iraqi army.
Hey, Wilson never answered your question, really.
Yeah, well, he's a politician. What should I expect?
That's a real good point, Chris, but what do you think? Do you think they're going to bring back the draft?
Well, I don't know. You know, Congress Rangel tried to bring back the draft in the House of Representatives, but nobody actually even voted for it. So I don't know if they're going to bring it back. Hey, Gary, I know you're signed up for the Marine Corps already, but do you support the draft?
Okay, well, first of all, I don't believe in the deferments for all the rich people if there would be a draft. Another positive would be that there would never be a manpower shortage in the armed forces if we had a draft. And right as it is right now, the National Guard is being stretched too thin, and the Army does not have enough troops, so they have to use National Guard, and that wouldn't happen anymore. And I think that Iran and some of their allies would stop messing around and wise up if we had a draft, because they know that we would be serious and we'd put them down. Stance on the issue, Michael?
Well, I think if we do bring it back, then the public support for the government will probably drop even farther. And if we did have it, I would join up, and I would probably go into the Navy. You join, Chris?
Well, my dad was a conscientious objector, so I'll go get him. He'll be able to tell us a little more about why he chose that as his position in Vietnam. Can you explain your situation in 1970 when you would have been drafted?
In 1970, I was getting ready to graduate from Ohio University, having started there in 1966. My 4 years of college were up, as were my 4 years of student deferment. At that point, the Vietnam War was at one of its highest points, and the draft was on everybody's mind, my mind included. I was part of the first lottery for the draft, and realized from my numbers, which I believe was number 139, they drafted you by your birthday. They pulled it out of a big jar. It was on the radio in our dorm, and everybody sat around, and as your birthday came up, everybody groaned and ran out of the room. But I realized at that point that I probably would be drafted. In those days, to be drafted meant to go to Vietnam, basically. So I had to sit back and think what my situation was and how I could respond to it. So I started looking at various alternatives to being drafted. One is to leave the country, to go to Canada, which was a viable option at that time. Several people in my college dorm did it. I did not think that that was going to be right for me. So I started exploring the possibility of declaring myself to be a conscientious objector. To become a conscientious objector, you had to go to in front of the draft board, which was local community people, who and you had to explain to them your aversion to wanting to be in the military. And the best, and I guess I don't want to say the easiest way, but the most common way was to base it on religious beliefs. So with that background, I was able to go through a hearing process and was declared to be a conscientious objector. At that point, you had to serve for 2 years. You could not make any more money than what the lowest pay in the Army was. You had to serve in a humanitarian area or humanitarian, I don't know what the word would be. You had to find a job that was called alternative service. I was eligible for 3 jobs. One was up in Alaska to work with the Aleut Eskimos for a religious organization, but you were snowed in 9 months of the year, so I didn't take that one. I could have worked in a hospital in Boston, or where I ended up was in Berlin, Germany, working for a German reunification church group. Spent 2 years there and felt like I did some good, and I've never regretted my decision.
You know, my Marine recruiter would know a lot about this. You want to go talk to him?
So, what it is or how it works, we should go find out how those things go, how it happens.
Hey, let's go Google it, man.
It says that the first draft was in the Civil War. The Selective Services Act was passed in 1917, which gave the president the power to draft an army.
First peacetime draft was in 1940 because of the mounting problems in Europe. That makes sense.
It also says that after 4 years of drafting soldiers for the Vietnam conflict, which the U.S. abandoned in '73, but Carter then reversed it and reinstated the Selective Services Act in 1980. Why don't you go to their website, Gary?
Alrighty, it says right here, we could be put in jail or fined 250 grand. It also says that it is impossible to receive financial aid, and without registering, we cannot get grants or loans for college.
And I remember reading somewhere that during the Vietnam draft, if you were rich or had the right connections, you could get out of it.
You can't. In 1973, when they changed the draft laws, they made it much harder for the rich people to get deferred. And that's the way I think it should be anyway, with everyone having an equal chance.
It also says that college students can't wait until their college education has ended. Now they only have to wait until their term is done, unless you're a senior, and then you're allowed to graduate. It also says that there are physical deferments. The conscientious objectors and foreigners have a way of getting out of the draft. Hey, I thought we were going to go see Sergeant Woodruff.
Oh yeah, let's go. Alright, we're here at Armed Forces Recruiting. If you think you have what it takes to be a Marine, get in touch with me and I'll get you in contact with Sergeant Woodruff. Sergeant Woodruff, do you think the U.S. needs a draft?
I don't think the United States has to initiate the draft at this point. I think it would help with some of the countries out there doing, things that they're not supposed to do. I think that it would help alleviate the problem over there. I think if they saw that the United States initiated a draft, they would stop doing, the bad things that they are doing.
So what do you think?
Well, Michael, I don't think a draft is needed, and Philip Gold, who wrote The Coming Draft, The Crisis in Our Military, Why a Selective Service is Wrong for America. Gold asks if the draft is needed, and his answer is no, but hell no, in no way how can we speak of it more plainly like that. Any return to federal conscription, which is commonly called the draft, would be both military wrong and morally adherent. He says that it is an inadequate way of doing business and neither is necessary or desirable now.
Online, I found this quote from Paul Hara, a columnist for the Conservative Voice. The military draft could be, in fact, one of the great saviors of our American culture. In an age when counterproductive child-rearing techniques is turning generations of children into undisciplined, unprincipled, and disrespectful brats, the Army and Marine Corps are turning millions of boys with no parental discipline, little ambition, and little promise into men of real substance.